Well, thank you for joining us here today, everybody. My name is Eleanor Terrett. I am a journalist and producer at Fox Business in New York City. And I'm happy to be in Austin today, where I think the weather is a lot better than it is in New York. So thank you for joining me. And I'm joined by three awesome panelists today. I want to introduce Drew Wolfer, who is sitting next to me. He's the CEO and founder of transaction security firm PreSend. Then we have Irina Berkon, who is the chief financial officer of crypto banking company Metallicus. And finally, last but not least, we have Daniel Chong. He's the co-founder and he's a developer of on-chain firewall Harpie. So welcome, guys. Thank you for joining me today. I want to start off just kind of looking at the theme, the overall theme of today, which is the end of crypto theft. And the three of you run companies that essentially solve that issue, right? You know, hacks, scams, stolen keys, wallet hacks, all that kind of stuff. The stuff that we don't want to see in crypto, the stuff that gives crypto a bad name. And essentially giving back power to the individual investor. So yeah, I mean, what do your companies do? Give me a sentence or two. Just go down the line. I'll start with you, Drew. Just a sentence or two about what your companies are doing to solve those pitfalls that we've seen, you know, especially in the last year and a half, but mainly since crypto started.
Yeah, so again, I'm Drew Wolfer. I'm the CEO of PreSend. So what PreSend does is we basically stop cross-chain transactions from getting lost in the cryptocurrency black hole, because there's erroneous theft, like where people meant to steal your money, and then there's the accidental blockchain theft. The blockchain didn't mean to steal your money. It had no nefarious intent, but the blockchain can and will steal your money in certain cases. So, you know, whenever you send things, say USDC on Polygon, and you send it to an Ethereum wallet, you just lost your money, unfortunately. It's very unfortunate, but it happens. And PreSend has actually come in with a patent pending solution, which in my personal opinion, I think is truly revolutionary to stop that from happening. That way we can usher in a new age of, you know, crypto adoption and make sure that everybody's being able to, you know, obviously self-custody their assets, because we're read-only. We want absolutely no ability to touch your assets. But secondly, just to be able to protect said assets.
That's very interesting. I think that I agree that that's a big kind of thing that people don't really realize that that's happening, and they can really fall into that pit hole. That's a interesting, like, you know, use case for theft. At Metallicus, we do a lot of things, and as it relates to this topic, we have created a non-custodial wallet. It's called WebAuth. It uses web authentication to help you sign transactions with your private key. And we have created various products on the Proton blockchain that allow users to, you know, trade on the decentralized exchange or lend through Proton loan to each other. But keeping your crypto within your wallet and your secured private keys. So you never have to give it up to an exchange. You don't put your coins into somebody else's wallet, and then you don't know who's borrowing and who's lending it. So that is our contribution to preventing crypto theft, or, you know, detecting it.
Nice to meet everybody. I'm Daniel. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Harpie. That's Harpie, not Heartbeat. So we are the on-chain firewall company. We stop people from losing money to theft, scams, either before it hits the chain or when it hits the chain. So, you know, for the people in the audience that are familiar with MEV, we use some of that to actually stop transactions from hitting the blockchain that are malicious. We're backed by like Dragonfly, Coinbase, OpenSea, and our main use case is to help people not lose their crypto tokens, or like NFT specifically, honestly, to theft and scams. So just over the last week, we've saved over $100,000 in crypto theft. So I'm very happy about that. And we're continuing to do our good work. So nice to meet everybody.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So let's continue that conversation. You know, probably the biggest question in the space right now, aside from who's going to regulate this thing, that's probably the biggest question mark, is how do we incorporate sort of the DeFi angle and self-custody into mainstream, and how do we transition away from these third-party custody apps and help self-custody, you know, become more of a thing? Irina, I want to put this question to you. Given everything that we've seen in the last year and a half with the failure of the banks and the implosion of FTX, is there a place in the future for third-party custody, or do you see a total phase-out and, you know, transition into self-custody and DeFi?
Well, I think both can exist together, and they should. You know, we're not competing against something that's not that should exist alongside with us. So Coinbase has a place next to a decentralized exchange. Absolutely, there is user experience, there is security, there is technical ability to do certain things that you need to do. Even though we are making it easier and easier, I think where we should look at to answer this question is how to distinguish the good players from the bad players, and how to continue to do proper due diligence on who do you deal with, because it wasn't FTX and Celsius and some other of the players that are no longer around. It wasn't because the private keys were lost. It was because a person made the wrong decision. And it's very difficult. You can't talk. You can't negotiate, and you can't talk to the blockchain. The smart contract always wins. We say that in our Proton loan. You can't call up a smart contract and say, "Can I pay my loan later?" Or "I lost my money." No, it'll just liquidate and go away, and the lender will get paid no matter what happened, because it wasn't sitting in someone else's wallet and they misappropriated the assets. So I think it's a twofold. The centralized has to exist, but it has to be both regulated, and the users should do very deep due diligence before they use it. And that's a big spectrum of how can you do that. But the DeFi part, it's interesting, and it's very creative, and there's a lot of opportunity to make it user friendly. So whoever wants to use it, they can.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. But I think to a lot of, say, the older generations, and I'm talking about maybe older lawmakers and regulators who are used to the banks, who have been banking for, the better part of their lives, there's a sort of mystique and sort of maybe fear around decentralization and giving that power to the people. Drew, what is it going to take for, DeFi and self-custody to really take off? From your perspective and your company, what are you seeing? How long will that take? Are we talking years, tens of years, hundreds of years?
Yeah. So, in my opinion, self-custody and DeFi, most likely there will always be a centralized authority, because it's been like that for a very long time. And, we've kind of proven, a lot of times we've proven that we aren't going to self-govern that well, because we're focused on other things, like in our day-to-day life, right? And that's why a lot of times you'll have these elected officials that's their day-to-day life. That's exactly what they do, and they have the time to spend on it. Now, I do think there's a lot of users that do want to see decentralization and DeFi, but then I don't think they understand how much it's going to take for them to manage all of their own finances and really keep up with all the regulations, really keep up with all the accounting, the taxes, and things of that sort. So it's going to be incredibly tough, but I think there's a happy medium where we can bring in that kind of centralized control authority that at the end of the day kind of polices it, right? And rightfully so. They've done a very terrible job of policing this entire market, just like all of us in general, right now, because there's a lot of crazy stuff that's been happening, and there's a lot of nefarious actors, at least in my opinion, that have done a lot of bad things. But there's got to be a happy medium there where it kind of makes everybody, I guess, happy. It's like a good compromise is where everybody loses something, but they don't feel like they lost everything, right? So there's going to have to be this compromise, in my opinion, and being able to, one of our compromises is bringing in solutions like PreSend that would basically usher in a new age of, hey, this is making crypto easier. It's making crypto easier to understand and harder for people to, I guess, lose their money and things of that sort, because let's be real, no bank is going to want to come in if they could just randomly send $100 million transaction on Polygon to an Ethereum wallet, and then it poof gone, right? So in order for us to want them to come in and kind of play ball with us, right, and be in that same arena with us, you have to show them that they're safe. That doesn't just translate to just retail users, but that translates to institutional money. And I'm not just talking banks, like the big corporations of the world. What makes them want to be on the blockchain if they can get their money stolen, or they can accidentally lose their crypto, or it's not regulated and stuff like that? A lot of these larger institutions, they are under the same laws as what you would see in crypto, that it's they're trying to figure out what that is right now. And so they're all waiting on the sidelines to see what exactly happens. So I think bringing those types of solutions to the market and also helping kind of mold that regulatory framework along the way is what's going to get us there.
And just quickly following up, what's your timeline then? Because this morning I listened to Jeremy Allaire, who's the CEO of Circle, and he said that 10 years ago, he told his primary investors that this is not going to be a get rich quick scheme, get rich overnight. This is going to take, 10, 20 years to implement and to really, succeed. So given that, what would you say the timeline would be?
Well, historically speaking, we don't really get things done very fast, at least at a government level. My guess is it's going to be at least probably a half a decade. I mean, we can kind of use the CBDCs that they're trying to roll out, which you can feel however you want to feel about it. I'm not going to offer an opinion on it because that's not the point of this comment. But the CBDCs are set to roll out over like a 4 to 5 year period. So I would say something along those lines.
Cool. So I also heard you talk about policing, and Daniel, you have had some success, a lot of success it seems there with your, your CEO or CEO, I'm sorry, and developer of Harpie. And, do you see from your point of view and, just from a sort of a macro perspective and the timeline and everything, do you see companies like yours partnering with government down the line with maybe regulatory bodies like the SEC, the CFTC, another regulatory agency that might regulate digital assets? Or do you see them kind of taking that approach that we've seen them take, which is kind of like, we're handling this, it's all government, we've all got it under control, we're going to do it ourselves, and we're going to regulate by enforcement, what they have been doing? Or do you see a collaboration in the future?
I think when it comes to like regulatory agencies, I do think that one of the APCs, one of the regulators or agencies responsible for consumer protection will step in and start using security tools like ours or others. They've actually started. So the FBI, the CIA, they're starting to use tools like chain analysis. They're starting to use that even in like federal courts as evidence. So we're already starting to see like a lot of the agencies adopt analytics technology when it comes to enforcement. I don't necessarily think that specifically like the SEC and the CFTC are going to adopt those, but there needs to be a lot more safety tooling in place. I mean, finance is the most regulated industry. I think that's commonly agreed. But the issue is that, at this point, crypto is not even something that I would show my parents. Like, I wouldn't show them how to use a wallet. I wouldn't even show certain friends how to use a crypto wallet because I can't trust that they're going to be using their assets safely. And first of all, the innovation is going to come from the private sector. I don't think the government is ready to make innovations when it comes to actually securing users. And I don't think they ever will. So they're going to rely on the private sector. So like moving from there, they've already started to use, regulatory agencies have already started to use private security firms and private analytics firms. So I think it's a definite yes that we'll start seeing more adoption and even like a requirement to use security products in the future.
Yeah, let's hope it's in the US and not outsourcing overseas. So you guys have been in the industry now for several years, and we've all seen not necessarily the birth of, but the trials and errors, and especially the successes of the internet. And, we wouldn't be here without it today, would not be able to hold this conference. Any of this wouldn't be possible. So with that, that was probably like a 10, 20-year model. What is needed for this industry to succeed safely in the long term? Is it more education? Is it more collaboration between government and industry? Or is it a new SEC chair?
Yeah, so I think I'm going to agree a little bit with Daniel where it's like the private sector is going to get leaned on heavily in order to do this. I mean, just look historically, like all of our military contracts, the government outsources it all to the private sector anyways, right? So most likely what's going to happen is we're going to have to build these things and kind of, usher in that new age of adoption, which in my opinion, it really comes down to the topic of this, like reducing theft, reducing scams, reducing the ability to just randomly do something terrible in crypto that would never happen in real life in like traditional finance and stuff like that. So to be honest, I think it's just going to have to be a collaborative effort. And just like he said, I mean, he made really amazing points that I agree a lot with. There's no way that they're just going to come out and say, this is how it needs to be. Somebody's going to have to push that through kind of to the forefront and say, like, hey, we're blazing the trail. This is how we see it, because there's a big difference in between. It's like, if you're not, say, for example, a basketball player, if you've never dribbled a basketball, how can you teach somebody else how to dribble a basketball, right? You watched a YouTube tutorial or something. So if they're not actually in this sector all day, every day, and they're not entrenched in it, then how can we expect them to make decisions that's on our behalf and actually good decisions at that? So I think that's the main issue, is their education factor is going to have to come in, but we know that they're not really going to reach out for that education and say, hey, come teach us. They might hire some consultants and professionals, but at the end of the day, I think that we'll just have to kind of collaborate and lead them to it, right?
Yeah, I think there are 2 points, and you touched on both of them. One would be, regulators in the United States, because it is very sad to see companies leaving because of that, not because of, I talked to somebody yesterday who's not from the US, and I said, some people are moving to Middle East. He said, is it because of taxes? I'm like, no, it's not because of taxes. You
wish it was because of taxes.
Yeah, and it's because of regulation. It's a lot easier to launch things in other countries. Some countries it's harder, but so we are kind of, one of the last ones clawing to the United States, and we really hope that the regulators will support responsible innovation. And what has happened with, we keep picking on the same ones because those, the FTX and Celsius, it wasn't because of crypto, it was because of fraud and because of lying and because of stealing. And it could have happened to a shoe store. So, let's not, and, SVB also didn't happen because of crypto. Everyone wants to blame it. So, let's separate that. Let's have the regulation for those use cases, which are very separate, and regulation for crypto innovation and blockchain innovation. So I think that needs to be, the forefront, and the good players will come out and the bad players will not. They will fail, and if the regulation is right. And then the second thing is just real use cases, because, we have devs at our company that will dream up and build anything over the weekend. And they will come out and say, look what I made, it's so cool. And then we say, it's very cool, but, we're not really sure who's going to use it. And maybe it's too soon, maybe it's, we're looking 5 years in the future. So real use cases, and one example that my CEO and I like to give is, how do you buy crypto, right? There weren't very many fiat on-ramps, so we really focused on that. And in order to have a fiat on-ramp, you need certain licenses, and they're not easy to get, and there is a reason for that, and that's okay. So we said, okay, a real use case is just very simple. Here is my money. It's either in a bank account or in a credit or a debit card. Give me Bitcoin back. So let's not overcomplicate it. Let's not, build a node and run a blockchain, something or other. That's all the use case. So I think that when these use cases start, being needed by the masses and they start getting addressed, that's going to give everybody kind of the next step. And then after that, it can be a little bit more complicated. And what do you now do with your Bitcoin? But we're not quite there yet.
I think like a big question that most people are coming into consensus with is like, am I going to see the next big thing, a consensus that's going to bring back the crypto bull market, bring back innovation, bring back like the positivity? And when it comes to that, I don't think that like better regulators or even regulation in general will be the ones to spark that. I think as a quote unquote technology brother, I think that the developers are going to innovate past whatever regulation is going to be put in place. I think one thing that will really spark like I guess the next wave of crypto is going to be focused around making it a more seamless experience. And there's a big talk about like, oh, we need to have more education in the space. I heavily disagree with that, because when you want something enough, you don't have to have it preached to you. You're just going to go and educate yourself and get it. There's a huge there's so much value that we could achieve with crypto, but there haven't been any cool products in the past year or so that have actually made people say, oh, I want to go and buy an NFT. During the NFT bull market, I found so many of my friends surprisingly like onboarding onto MetaMask and Coinbase, even though that process is so difficult. And there was so much value to be unlocked there. So I guess to bring it back to the question, I think that when it comes to bringing back the new wave of adoption, it's not like, I think it's a bit negative to think, oh, like these laws are going to stop crypto innovation or and stuff like that. I think there's so much value to be unlocked, and I'm generally very optimistic that we're going to see a product soon that or just value creation that ends up bringing people back to the platform.
Can I just add to that, kind of to my point of, the developers are really, really smart, and so they can create something, exactly, and not they can create something that's amazing, and then they want to maybe show other people or launch it, or a company maybe want to monetize it, and that's where the trouble comes in, and we talked about a while ago about stable coins or lending products. People will build it. You can't prevent them from writing code. But what happens next? That's where some framework needs to come back. But I think both of those need to be happening simultaneously, and the regulators should know that there's someone in their garage building the next great thing, and now they should want to promote it.
Yeah. Well, according to Gary Gensler, the next big thing is going to be AI, which I agree with, but is it going to, is it going to be better than crypto? Can we work together, AI and crypto? I feel like there could be so many possibilities that, kind of discriminating against one or the other is just not a good approach. I know we're running kind of tight on time, so just want to see if any of you want to add anything with your professional and very expert knowledge and opinions.
Yeah, so I can hear myself now. Okay. So yeah, I think that, kind of going back to the, ushering in and kind of like that collaborative effort, I do find it odd, and this kind of, goes to your point that you can do whatever you want for free, but how dare you try to monetize it, right? Or how dare you try to fund it, right? So it's either bootstrap and do it for free, or you can't do it. And I find that odd, right? So there needs to be some type of, there has to be a middle ground. I'm not saying let everybody go out and grow an afro and do an SBF, right? But you definitely need to bring the innovators into this space and motivate them to do something. And what's the best motivation? Because let's be honest, as much as I hate to say it, there is no altruism in society. So monetary gain, fiscal gain, social gain is going to be your motivating factor. That's like the main thing that they're stifling people with. Like, don't build it. Go ahead, build it. But do it for free. Don't charge anyone, and don't talk about it. Well, that basically takes all incentivization away from anybody from doing anything cool ever. So I know I wouldn't do it. If you do something well, you never do it for free. So, and same thing with my dev. I would never, ever in a million years say, hey, man, you have to build this crazy, once thought to be impossible solution, but do it for free, by the way. And we're going to give it away for free. No, and I wouldn't go to Coinbase, and say, hey, Coinbase, we want you to implement this tech, and your customers want it as well, but do it for free. You're going to charge a 50-cent fee or $1 fee or something very minuscule, but at the end of the day, there's overhead, there's costs. People, in my opinion, the most precious commodity known to man is time. So if you're going to spend your time doing something, then there should be an inherent reward and value at the end of that. So that's just kind of my 2 cents on that. There has to be something,
I agree 100%. People tell us, how dare you charge to use your platform or whatever. And, I always say, my child likes to eat food, and
This is a business like any other.
Yeah, and, we are in fact a business, and we don't overcharge. We try to do the best we can, but people need to eat.
Drew, Irina, Daniel, thank you so much, and thank you guys for coming to listen today.